I don't think he was involved in crimes, but even then, you can make anything a crime under the current laws. If you want to, you can blow it way out of proportion. You can do a lot of things.
Good evening. I'm Erin Burnett, and out front tonight, anxious, quote, super pissed and alone. President Trump increasingly afraid about his political future as Democrats are preparing to take over the House, putting them in charge of any impeachment proceedings. This coming after the president's former personal lawyer implicated him in 2 campaign finance felonies, which some Democrats say are already grounds for impeachment. President Trump tonight lashing out at Michael Cohen, saying the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels and playmate Karen McDougal were fine. The president tweeting, Democrats can't find a smoking gun, quote, that's because there was no collusion. So now the Dems go to a simple private transaction, wrongingly calling it a campaign contribution, which it was not. Cohen just trying to get his sentence reduced. Witch hunt. Now, first of all, let's just be clear about one thing. The collusion with Russia question is not related to the possible felony payments to Daniels and McDougal. These are 2 separate problems that the president may have. He's trying to muddy the waters there by using his familiar words like witch hunt. The former CIA Director John Brennan, now obviously a Trump critic, ridiculing the president's tweet today, saying, quote, whenever you send out such inane tweets, I take great solace in knowing that you realize how much trouble you are in and how impossible it will be for you to escape American justice. Mostly, I am relieved that you will never have the opportunity to run for public office again. Okay, let me just repeat that last line there from the former CIA director. Never have the opportunity to run for public office again. Okay, that obviously could lead you right to this felony issue. And Brennan is not alone. Democrats are increasingly raising the I word, using it directly, impeachment.
This president, in my estimation, has done everything possible to certainly be eligible for impeachment. And so I really do think that it should be started.
Are those impeachable offenses?
Well, they would be impeachable offenses.
I think you are beyond the stage that led to the impeachment proceedings against President Clinton, whether or not you think that that was worthy of impeachment or not.
The word is out there. So let's just not forget one thing. Impeachment is a political process. That means the Republican-led Senate has to conduct a trial on any impeachment claims that are approved by the House, which, of course, is Democrats. So you could get it through the House, as you got impeachment in the case of Clinton through the Republican House. Then you've got the Senate. Now, up until now, the Senate, the Republican-led Senate, has been very protective of the president. Even the former FBI Director Jim Comey, and this is important, though, he's a fierce Trump critic. He's a Republican, but a fierce Trump critic. God knows, you just have to listen to Trump to know that. This weekend, he called on Americans to, quote, use every breath they have to oust Trump. In his opinion, the president should not be impeached.
I hope Donald Trump is not removed from office by impeachment because it would let the country off the hook. And it would drive into the fabric of our nation a third of the people believing there was a coup.
A coup. Is Comey right, or will Democrats move full steam ahead? Shimon Prokupecz is live in New York tonight, and Shimon, the president, obviously very concerned, it's obvious, about what Michael Cohen has already told prosecutors.
Right, and he should be, Erin. The president is the central figure in this investigation, in the SDNY here in New York, the campaign finance investigation. He's the central figure in this. And it was Michael Cohen whose sole purpose in cooperating with the SDNY, prosecutors said in their sentencing memorandum, the reason he cooperated was to provide information on the campaign finance charges. There was nothing else that he provided them information with. And when you think about the way in which the prosecutors explain that the president, individual number one, directed and coordinated with Michael Cohen in making these payments. Also in the way that these payments were structured, in the way that they say these payments were hidden by the organization, by the Trump organization. They went through shell companies. The way in which they paid Michael Cohen are all ways in which the president, of course, should be concerned. And of course, his attorneys should be concerned. And, I think prosecutors here lay out a very good case that if the president, if Donald Trump wasn't the president, he probably would have been indicted or charged in this case as well. Now, of course, Erin, there's a lot of arguments being made about whether or not they could wait until he's out of office. That is a possibility. It is something that the FBI agents could still pursue, or a new prosecutor under a new administration could take up and could bring charges against the president for once he's out of office.
All right, Shimon, thank you very much. And I want to go out front now to the Democratic Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island, member of the House Judiciary Committee. And Congressman, I appreciate your time. Look, as we said, we're at a crossroads for this country. The president says the payments to women now that obviously would be felonies. He says this is all a witch hunt. Now, we are talking about specific felonies. The Congressman Jerry Nadler, obviously your colleague, incoming chairman likely here, he says these are impeachable offenses. Do you agree, Congressman?
Well, I think it's important to remember this is President Trump's Justice Department who has now said that he directed Mr. Cohen to commit 2 felonies. This is very serious. I think it's important that, again, we await the final conclusions of the ongoing special counsel investigation because based on what we've seen in the last week, we're starting to get a real window into the special counsel's investigation and the status of that investigation. My educated guess is there's much more to come. We need to wait until all of that information is presented to Congress, and if it in fact warrants removal from office, I don't think we'll hesitate to do it, but we need to let the special counsel finish his work. We need to prevent the president or anyone on his behalf from interfering or impeding or attempting to undermine that investigation. But I think there's much more to come.
All right. So I want to talk about this because obviously we're talking about felonies on the payments of women campaign finance violation and then the Russia issue, collusion. Obviously, the legal term would be conspiracy as another issue. In terms of these hush payments to women, which obviously would be felonies, right? I mean, felony is a felony. That is an impeachable thing if you want it to be, Congressman. Today, Republicans are saying those hush payments are not a big deal. Here's Orin late today. I don't know if you heard him. Let me play him.
I don't think he was involved in crimes, but even then, you can make anything a crime under the current laws. If you want to, you can blow it way out of proportion. You can do a lot of things.
And, look, the president obviously is saying it's okay, even if he was involved in crimes. Hatch is agreeing. Republican Senator John Thune, he'll be the number 2 Republican over in the Senate. The congressman says, quote, it's hard to read too much into it. I mean, Congressman Cicilline, what is your response to Senators Hatch and Thune who are acting like these payments, even if felonies, are not a big deal?
Well, of course it is a big deal. Anytime, and this is the first time in our history that the Department of Justice has concluded that the President of the United States directed another individual to commit 2 felonies. No one should lose sight of that. This is a very serious offense. This is a crime directed by the President, according to Mr. Cohen. If this turns out to be true, of course it's serious. The question is, what other information will Congress have that may, in addition to that, warrant proceeding with impeachment? Because this is obviously part of the investigation, but it's a separate case. The special counsel is a different one, but I think we have to wait for that. But no one should minimize. This is monumental to have the President of the United States directing another individual to commit 2 felonies as part of an effort to defraud the American people and win an election. We should not make light of this in any way, and it's very disappointing to see members of the United States Senate minimizing this behavior.
So, Congressman, let me ask you, though, because while you're saying it's very important, it also sounds like you're saying, let's get everything else first. So, I mean, is your takeaway, do you think we need more than a campaign finance violation, as monumental as it is? I'm sorry,
I think this is very important, but I do think there's one opportunity. We're going to have one opportunity to make a judgment as a Congress as to whether or not impeachment is appropriate. We owe it to the American people to get all of the information so we make the most informed judgment with all of the evidence. You can only do this once. You're not going to have several bites at the apple, so I think it's important to wait until we get all the information. But no one should think that that is not by itself sufficient to remove the president from office.
Right. So you're saying it may be sufficient, but you're not going to move on it alone or with anything else until you get more information. I mean, so when Senator Chris Murphy says, and you heard him there in our introduction, look, we're beyond where we were when the Clinton impeachment proceedings began. That was the point he was making. Is he right? I mean, do you think that you're placing the bar to start a Trump impeachment higher because there could be so many more offenses?
Well, I think we owe it to the American people to allow the special counsel to finish this investigation because it may, in fact, provide even a more significant basis for impeachment proceedings. But we ought to at least let that process be finished before we proceed. And I think we worked hard to make sure a special counsel was appointed. We worked hard to make sure the Attorney General recused himself. Now we need to allow Mr. Mueller to finish this. And by the way, while we're doing that, we need to do the things we ran on: drive down health care costs, rebuild the infrastructure of our country, raise family wages, take on the pervasive corruption in Washington, and get the government working for the people again. We can do both things: the agenda that is the urgent needs of the American people, and at the same time hold this administration accountable, await Mr. Mueller's report, and take whatever action that requires.
Congressman Cicilline, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And next, breaking news this hour.